And welcome everyone to this relatively new podcast. I am DB Cooper, the most devious and elusive con man in US history. That is obviously a lame joke. I am Lakhalabade Mutahu, a guy from Lesotho, and welcome to this podcast where I will be exploring all sorts of ideas, from music to political ideology to everything really that is of interest. And for this first episode, or this first playlist of the whole podcast, I will be exploring music and sharing my favorite songs from my favorite artists and doing a deep dive really into them for you in this first playlist. And this will be the first playlist. The second playlist might incorporate a few people in which we will be discussing all sorts of things, all sorts of themes, the themes that I had talked about in the beginning of this intro. And it's going to be a cracking time. So today I will be reviewing a song from one of my favorite albums, and I think this is one of the greatest rap albums of all time by Mad Villainy, which is the collective, the rap duo of the producer Madlib and the oh-so-villainous MF Doom, the super villain of rap. And this is the second track off of Mad Villainy, the album. After the intro, the Ellis Villains, this is Accordion. And this was actually the first beat that MF Doom that MF Doom received from Madlib, that he rapped over from Madlib. And he says that this was a freestyle that he just ended up writing and mastering and gave it back to Madlib, and they worked the magic. And I think that's when they saw that spark of chemistry. That was the first time they actually interacted and saw that they would make a formidable partnership. And a formidable partnership that doesn't even begin to cut the cake. These two have been amazing. They have been absolutely influential with just this one album. And this is Accordion, and it's a track that MF Doom is just freestyling over, and he's just sort of, this is not to say the beginning, but he really builds his sort of overarching idea of him being the overlord and the super villain of rap, and he's just here to destroy the game. His idea of villainy and ruthlessness and menace. He's just bringing it into the song over a very calm accordion beat, and he is just smoothly, with his off-kilter voice and his usually off-kilter rhyme scheme, but clean, off-kilter but clean, and he's just smoothly rapping over this Madlib beat, and it's an amazing song. And I figured I should just deep dive and give you guys a sense of what I feel when I listen to this man. I'll just get that ready for you. And yeah.
Okay.
I really don't want to hear more, thank you.
I hear you loud and clear. Get away from her! Oh, I am so sorry, ma'am. I hope these two
fake-ass bastard
haven't harmed you in any way.
Who are you?
Why, I'm
MF Doom.
What kind of fool do you take me for? He's
MF Doom.
He's
MF Doom.
yours.
MF Doom.
I'm
MF Doom.
Are there any other
MF Doom.
I should know about?
MF Doom. MF Doom.
So this is Accordion, the first four lines, the first quatrain, sort of obviously an introduction to the song and an introduction to the idea that he's really serving us in this song. This is a part of his character, the God complex, like I had explained in the introduction. And he starts off the first four lines. He says, living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. That'd be the hour they knock the slick plaster. Dig dastardly and mudly with sick laughter. A gunfight and they've come to cut the mix master, right? So this is obviously a reference to how he is the almighty God, almighty Doom, right? And he says that his opponents are living off borrowed time and the clock just keeps on ticking faster. And that'd be the hour they knock the slick plaster. So it means that he was alluding to how his opponents would try to knock him, the sick blaster, or the slick blaster, I should say, knock him off his perch, but they can't. He's the almighty Doom, the most villainous supervillain you can think of. And then he goes on in the third line, Dick Dastardly and Mudley with sick laughter, right? So Dick Dastardly, the first, the initials for Dick Dastardly are double D, of course, which could allude to Daniel Dumoulin, MF Doom's actual name, DD, Daniel Dumoulin, and then Mudley is obviously the first M, is the first letter for Madlib. So he's referring to himself and Madlib in this villainous duo of Dick Dastardly and Mudley. Those of you who were cartoon freaks back in the day, and this is from an old cartoon. I think I used to see it in Boomerang. Yeah, I think it was on Boomerang. Sorry, Boomerang. And yeah, Dick Dastardly was a super villain, and they'd always be, if memory serves me, they'd always be in this race, in this car race, and Mudley was his pet dog with this sort of raspy laughter, right? So I think that's also in reference to Madlib's voice, calling him Mudley. But it's a very smart reference here. And then he goes, a gunfight, but they've come to cut the mix master. So this is double entendre, of course, a gunfight, and they've come to cut the mix master. So obviously, literally, they're trying to kill him as the supervillain in this universe. And they've brought a cut. Sorry, not a cut. They've brought a knife to come and try and cut the mixmaster himself, right? So obviously, a cut could also mean a song, and this is a gunfight, and they've come to cut the mixmaster being himself, MF Doom, right? And then he goes on into the second quatrain. He says, ICE cold, nice to be old, Y2GC twice to threefold. He sold scrolls, lo and behold, know who's the illest ever, like the greatest story told, right? So ICE cold, he's basically referring to his personality being the supervillain, of course, that he is ice cold, he is a cold person. He also alluded to this in one of his other songs, I've just forgotten which one it was, and he says, as he grows older, he gets colder than a witch's tit, So ICE cold, nice to be old. Obviously, he came back into the game as an old guy, right? After a whole tragedy of his first group being disbanded and his brother passing away, now he's back. And he also alludes to this. He says in one of his other songs, I believe he said something like he said something like he referred to himself as something like a late newcomer, He's not part of the old school, but then he's just late into coming into this new style of rapping. Obviously, being MF Doom, he's a very unique rapper, and I'm trying to remember this line, but it just won't come to me. But anyway, ICE cold, nice to be old, of course. And also it also builds into the character being old, right? Old people generally are most old people are very miserable, and they try to spew their misery onto everyone else. They're very angry people, to say the least. Y2GC twice to threefold. Y2G obviously means year 2 grand, which is 2K, to the year 2000, of course, the turn of the new century. And he says his music or his persona, or just him, the idea of his villainy and MF Doom will live for 2,000 years and, threefold of that. Y2GC twice to threefold, right? Then he sold scrolls, lo and behold. Obviously, he is referring to his artistry, his music. He sold scrolls, lo and behold, and know who's the illest ever, like the greatest story told. So obviously, he's referring to himself being some sort of super deity, really, like Jesus Christ. Of course, the greatest story ever told, according to most humans, would be the story of Jesus Christ. So he's also playing, like I said, he's playing this in the whole song. He's playing this idea of him being the deity, the Almighty God, and now he's bringing in this sort of Bible reference to Jesus Christ. And then he also says he sold scrolls, lo and behold. Lo and behold would be something that you'd normally see in the Bible. That's English that you'd see in the Bible, not English that you'd hear commonly used by your everyman, right? And then he keeps on. He says, keep your glory gold and glitter, right? That's also a reference to Jesus Christ and how he, in the temple, right, he threw over the vendors' tables and whatnot and told them that this was, the Lord's house. And of course, he's referring to that, but he's also referring to the fact that he is a rapper and he is MF Doom, a very elusive figure who tries to hide his identity as much as he can to get people to more focus on his music, his artistry, than who he is, right? So he says, keep your glory gold and glitter. So obviously he's referring to these rappers with the chains and just these rappers living this exuberant lifestyle, right? Well, which is what we commonly see nowadays. And then he goes on and says, for half of his niggas would take him out the picture. The other half is rich and it don't mean shitter. Villain, a mixture between both with a twist of liquor. So he's just saying to him, all these possessions and whatnot, they don't really matter. And he is well connected with everyone else, people who do have these possessions and people who don't. But for him, he's just a mixture of both with a twist of liquor. Of course, he is MF Doom, the super villain. He absolutely loves brew. He is a brew connoisseur, loves beer. He was nuts with this beer, really. Right, and then he keeps on with the whole with the twist of liquor. Then he goes on into the next line. He says, "Chase it with more beer, tasted like truth or dare." Right. So in this line, he's basically referring to how people use juice or pop as chasers, to sort of sweeten the liquor. However, Doom uses beer to sweeten his liquor. So he's just a hardcore. It just goes on to it's a small little idiosyncrasy, but then it just adds on to his villainous character. Like you would want to dash your hard liquor with some Coke or Fanta or whatever you prefer, and he just goes on and dashes his hard liquor with beer, and it's tough. It's just right. And then he goes on. He says, when he have the mic, it's like the place get like, oh yeah, it's like they know what's about to happen. Just keep your eye out, like aye Captain. So obviously he's referring to his penmanship, his wordsmith nature, and how he is a very brilliant MC, and people know this. And when he gets the mic, it's like the place like here comes the absolute MC, the mic controller. MF Doom is like the place gets like, oh yeah, it's like they know what's about to happen. Just keep your eye out, like aye Captain. So that one line, just keep your eye out, like aye Captain, is actually a triple entendre. Just keep your eye out, like aye Captain. That would mean obviously, it's like they know what like he says, it's like they know what's about to happen. Just keep your eye out, like aye Captain. So keep your eye out for him, of course, and then also keep your eye out, like aye Captain. That's a reference to pirates, of course, that only have one eye, with the famous eye patches that pirates would have. And then he's also referring to the third eye, or what most people would call your pineal gland, and he's just telling you to keep being enlightened. So what I might have forgotten to mention is that when he got this beat from Madlib, this was actually the first beat he had, and when he wrote this, he was just freestyling. So even though it has this idea of an overarching idea of him being the overlord, the god, the deity, and him being above everyone else, it's still open game, and him just showing and introducing us to, because this is the first this is after the intro, and after the intro, the Endless Villain. So this is the first track where he's actually rapping over a beat, and this is just him flexing his skill, his genius level ability, right? So this is one of the triple entendres this is one of his most famous lines. I'd say, just keep your eye out, like aye Captain. And then is he still a fly guy is he still a fly guy clapping if nobody ain't hear it? Right, so this is in reference to, it's a play on the classic, if a tree falls in the forest, will anyone hear it, right? So it's like, okay, so this line and the next one is a sort of play on the gangster's paradox. So Doom is proposing that in the hood, you're considered a fly guy, for killing or clapping someone. And this is like a double entendre as well, for killing or clapping someone. However, if nobody's there to witness the killing, there's no evidence or confirmation that you actually did it. So you're not as fly as, you claim to be. Therefore, the downside to someone witnessing it is that they could rat you out as well. So the paradox being, you want people to know that you're a killer, but you don't want witnesses. So he says, is he still a fly guy clapping if nobody can hear it? So it's a double entendre, of course. And then he says, and can they testify from in the spirit, so from within the spirit? So it's a continuation on the gunplay and the applause double entendre, like the clapping one. And so, yeah, it's a continuation of the double entendre. So the first interpretation could be, could the witnesses testify when they're dead? And alternatively, could you testify from your heart that you're a true fan of MF Doom, right? So is he still a fly guy clapping if nobody can hear it, right? And can they testify from in a spirit, right? And then he goes on, in living the true gods. So MF Doom is, right, okay, so in living the true gods. So he's a proponent of the 5%ers ideology that all of us are gods, and the whole slang term where we use G to refer my G, or that actually stands for God. That's a 5%ers idea, right? So in living the true gods, right? So him and Madlib, he's referring to him and Madlib, and then he says, giving y'all nothing but the lick, like two broads. So obviously the lick would be it's a play on words. So a hot break or a sample is often called a lick, right? So drum licks, guitar licks, and whatnot. And also licking is also a slang term, a synonym for whooping, right? So that seems like something Doom would do, would be in the spirit to give other MCs a whooping. And then the line actually starts before. It reads like this. The true gods giving you the lick like two broads, right? Meaning Madlib and Doom, the true gods, are teasing us, giving us the lick like two women teasing us sexually, like two women would sexually, like broads obviously refers to ladies of the night. So alternatively, a lick is also an opportunity to make money. So giving out nothing but the lick like two broads. And then he says, got more lyrics than the church, got ooh lords, right? So it's obviously wordplay. It's a punchline, got more lyrics than the church, got ooh lords, right? And then he says, and he holds, it's fairly obvious, got more lyrics than the church, got ooh lords. And then for the next line, he goes, and he hold the mic and your attention like two swords, right? So his lines are so intriguing that he holds your attention as well as the mic, because he's the mic controller, right? So he controls your attention and the mic like two swords, right? So he's holding the mic literally and your attention figuratively. So his hands are full, right? And then he says either that or either one with two blades on it, right? A knife with two blades on it, right? So actually, it's a double-bladed sword, right? So Doom holds your attention by his handling of the mic, So at first he says he's holding the mic and your attention, but then he also says, or he's just holding us like two swords, a mic and your attention like two swords. But then he also refers, and then in the next line he says, or either just one with two blades on it. So by him controlling the mic, he's also, holding your attention. So also the idea of a double-edged sword, a weapon that might cut or damage the user just as easily as the target. So skill is required, a certain level of efficacy to use this sort of thing. So he's also alluding to the fact that he is a master MC, master mic controller, right? So Doom was making several double entendres earlier in the song, and it would only be appropriate for his sword to be double-bladed, right? Because of the whole double entendres that we had discussed earlier on. And then he goes on and says, hey you, don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it, yuck, right? So people commonly avoid things that AIDS patients touch, despite only being communicable through sexual contact or bodily fluids like blood and stuff. So miseducating people is part of Doom's villainous deeds, right? So he says don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it, but you won't really get infected by AIDS if it was on the mic, unless it was from a bodily fluid, or if you had, I don't know, relations with the mic. So Doom is just being his villainous self and miseducating people. Just telling them he's just trying to chase them away, like, hey, don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it, that's my mic, I'm the mic controller here, right? So he's trying to set precedent that, just avoid the mic, because you can't rap very well. So yeah, you'd only be embarrassing yourself in front of Doom because of what he had done previously by, of course, controlling the mic and holding your attention like two swords, or either one. It's crazy the level of ability that this man had, and then he says it's like the end to the means, flip type of message that sends to the fiends, right? So that's in reference, of course. Okay, so yeah, the actual phrase would be means to an end, right? So hereby stating that means, perhaps a mundane job, is less important than the end, right? So usually money or fame or recognition. So here doom signifies through wordplay that the first idea would be the means, the getting of money, is more important than the end, getting the money itself, right? So yeah, he's at the end of his career and he has and his want to achieve rap stardom, right? So he's at the end of it now, and these are both the running themes of the song and the album. The former, first mentioned earlier in the song line, like keep your glory gold and glitter, and the letter in the song, all caps, where doom playfully suggests you can call me your majesty, right? So following the line, he says, flip type of message that sends to the fiends. So he's stating that he is thinking like a fiend himself. Drug fiends don't care what they have to do to get drugs, right? The means, money, right? Just as long as they get it, in the end, right? So Doom has a very complex understanding of idioms, and he shows this, right? So it's like an end to the means, flip type of message that's sent to the fiends, right? So the fact that he says it backwards, end to the means, instead of the means to an end, is interesting. The popular ethical theory, utilitarianism, relies heavily on this concept. Maybe since he says it backwards, he means to do the greatest evil to the greatest number of people, right? The opposite of the utilitarian idea, right? So this would play along with his villainous persona perfectly, instead of helping people like the utilitarian ideal would ideally do. He is messing around with the idiom itself and just feeding onto his villainous persona, right? And then he goes on to play on the whole fiends line. That's why he brings his own needles. So his rhymes are eagerly consumed by what Nas called the fiend of hip hop, right? Then a play on the words with needles used by drug addicts, right? And he also references AIDS in the lines above. So here Doom continues the metaphor of the mic and the needle. Apparently, like a composed drug addict, he knows to bring his own needle, his own mic, rather than using a diseased needle or a mic from someone before him. Doom is never second on the mic, right? So it's also wordplay on vinyl record player needles, right? So if Doom brings his own needles, he's bringing his own sound, different to the rest. So it's another double entendre. That's why he brings his own needles. So he's referring to, he's using needles as mic, and he warned you to get off the mic because it might have AIDS on it. He was just scaring you off, but then he also says he brings his own mic. He doesn't want to be second to anyone else on any other mic, but it's also a play on the whole vinyl player idea that he brings his own needles, his own sound. He doesn't need to use... Yeah, you get the gist. You get the gist of the whole double entendre in this line. And it's just one line. That's why he brings his own needles. And then he goes on and says, and get more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, or Fritos, right? So cheese means money, of course. So he brings his own mic to destroy the rap game, and he just gets money from it. So he's been quoted before as saying he's the villain of rap, and he's doing this for the money. That's in the song Crows, he starts off, he says, villain gets the money like crows, they're just trying to get a nut like squirrels in this mad world. And he's the super villain of hip hop. That's what he's come back to do as this character, MF Doom, to rain villainy over the game and get money while doing it. I mean, why else would you do this? Why else would you rejuvenate your career even after the industry has been bad to you? Well, the only motive would be money. So he says, and gets more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, or Fritos. And then he says, slip like Freudian, your first and last step to playing yourself like accordion, right? So slip like Freudian, obviously a Freudian slip is a verbal mistake that you might make, right? A slip of the tongue, for instance. So here he is warning rappers that if they slip, if they have a Freudian slip, they'd be ended by Doom himself, because they would ruin their credibility. So in the previous line, he compares himself to potato chips that have little to no cheese, not a lot of money, right? So could he actually be saying, I didn't mean to say that, So he says, and get more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, get more cheese and got more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, or Fritos, right? And then he says, slip like Freudian first and last step to playing yourself like accordion. So he's essentially saying, I shouldn't have let it slip that I have very little money, that I'm back in this game to get money, right? And additionally, Fritos contains no cheese. And it was the last example he gave. So the Freudian slip reveals that his mind does not consider cheese or money worthwhile, or else that he made a slip up, including Fritos on the line. But yeah, I don't really think. Yeah, for him, money is. I mean, that's the whole point of his coming back to. Well, not the whole point per se. Of course, he came back to kill the rap game and get some money whilst doing it. So him referring to Fritos that have little cheese, I think, just plays on to the next line where he talks about the Freudian slip. So he says, get more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, and then says Fritos, and then slip like Freudian, your first and last step to playing yourself like accordion. So that's the first line, your first and last step to playing yourself like accordion. So obviously, if you make a slip of the tongue, you're playing yourself. You're sort of ruining your credibility. And he says, slip like Freudian, your first and last step to playing yourself like accordion. And accordion is the whole basis of the beat of the song. It's played on an accordion, or in Sesotho we call it a Koreana, and that's the end of the song. So it's wordplay heavy. It is you can tell that this man is a wordsmith, full of double entendres, one triple entendre that's just mind-blowing in its simplicity, but the message it carries behind it, it's crazy. And references to his villainous character, how he played on the whole utilitarian idea, a means to an end. And and also I think he's also showing his ideological prowess and how he understands different ideological ideas with ideological ideas. That's crazy. Like the Freudian slip, like the utilitarian idea, like the idea of the 5% of God. So he's just showing he incorporates absolutely everything that he learns into his music, and it's just genius level ability how he can do it and still maintain the rhythm that he does, and maintain and just build it on a rhyme scheme, for instance, and how he quickly changes rhyme schemes and seamlessly changes from one rhyme scheme and one syllable to the next without you noticing. It's very smooth. It's very hard to rap over a beat that was recorded with the use of mainly an accordion. It's difficult, but MF Doom just slides and glides on it, and that's the whole theme of the rest of the album, of the Mad Villainy album. Madlib just showing his editorial and producer prowess, and Doom just being smooth like butter over every track. And yeah, I just wanted to share how amazing this man's ability was with you guys for my first episode. And yeah, thank you, and stay tuned for more. That will be coming out very soon. And this is MF Doob, all caps when you spell the man's name. All right.